Welcome to the Hoof and Fang podcast. I'm Kirt Graves.
And I'm Maz Maddox.
And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Another week. Another year.
Yes.
It all seems to be moving so slowly and yet so quickly.
I was about to say, it feels quick for me. And we're
halfway through January.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, just slow down. I needed to chill, but I'm sure you're like, you need projects to speed up and such.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting back in the booth, so everything feels a little harder, a little more uphill.
That's fair.
Because I haven't, all those muscles, the muscle memory of like recording every day for several hours, that all, I mean, it goes away after like a long weekend.
Yeah.
So imagine taking 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
And then having to jump back in. It's fully up to pace did not happen, nor did I expect it to.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
That's good.
Experience told me not to schedule like a ton of finished hours per day when I came back from this break.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So
at least you're not jumping in and then like hitting a wall immediately because you're like, oh, I'm out of practice and I'm tired.
Oh no, I'm hitting the wall. I just anticipated the wall. I was like, I'm going to hit a wall.
Okay.
So anticipate the wall.
Yeah.
And then that's the difference of it between experience and inexperience.
Is knowing the walls there.
Yeah. Not having an easier time, just knowing you're going to struggle.
Yeah. Hey, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're today was better than yesterday.
Okay.
I'm sure tomorrow will be better today, and within a couple weeks, I'll have my sea legs under me, just in time for us to take another vacation.
Naturally, right? So you get back in the groove, and it's like, oh, just kidding. Now you have to leave. Yep.
So how about you?
Man, I don't have any types of legs right now. I'm adrift, just pure day job bullshit. Like my brain is exhausted at the end of every day because I'm just learning new skills and new tools and everything. So I am just going to be absorbing books and happy media and just allowing myself to not write for a while until I can kind of find my new normal. But like we had our first little walkthrough of the house we're going to be moving into in Arkansas.
Ooh, fun.
It looks tiny, but in a good way, like tiny and cozy. And I got to see the little office that'll be mine, and like I'll have my own space. So
amazing.
I know, I'm so excited. So I will no longer be sharing one office with my sweet husband who I love, but it's hard to be creative and really immerse myself into a space that's mine when like half of it is also him, and he's over there like cussing at a video game, and I'm like trying to get into writing a spicy scene or something. So yeah, it'll be nice to have my little...
Yeah, John and I tried to share an office in our Sheboygan house.
Yeah.
Because it was a 3-bedroom, so we had one guest room and then our bedroom.
Yeah.
And then very large, long room.
Yeah.
So it was like easily 2 people can work in here.
Right.
So we got his desk all set up. I set up my workspace. The number of times we worked in that office at the same time, maybe twice.
Yeah. Nope.
Turns out John's a very loud typer.
Well, I think I told you about how Alex was like, oh man, you should get this really cool clicky keys. It's really fun. And then I bought it and he was like, actually it gets on my nerves.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? So yeah, just being in another space with another person and we can't do it.
Yeah.
We can't do it. He just has taken over that office. So, but I'll have
now you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're finding
nice.
Things to look forward to at the end of the stressful process of moving.
Right.
And having your own space, even a tiny space, which honestly,
I don't need much.
The older I get, the less house I want.
Right.
The less rooms and square footage I want to clean. With the exception of bathrooms, I will still always take 3 or more bathrooms, even for only 2 people.
Yeah.
But as long as I don't ever have to wait to go to the bathroom in my own house,
we're good.
I don't care if there's 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 studio space.
Yeah. It's fine.
Like,
yeah.
I will make it work.
Yeah. prefer smaller spaces when it comes to that because Jesus, man, like it's just the house gets away from you if you've got just one extra thing to do. I'm like, I don't even want to like sweep today because it'll take too much effort.
Yeah.
So
the older I get, the more I think the right formula for living with another person might be adjoining apartments.
Okay.
Side by side apartments.
I would love that. Like, I wish it was more normalized that you can just have your own house with like a bridge. You know what I mean? Like, I would just love my own kitchen, my own bathroom, my own everything. And then he's just right over there. We can go, I can go to his house to watch movies.
Right.
You know what I mean? That sounds lovely.
Right. Yeah.
But I think they call that a divorce.
No. There are, did you, I don't think you watch Abbott Elementary.
Mm-mm.
Cheryl Lee Ralph is one of the stars of Abbott Elementary. Very popular actress.
Yeah.
Been around forever. She was like Lauryn Hill's mom in the kids singing movie with the Sister Act 2.
Okay.
She's been around forever.
Yeah.
She recently started talking about the marriage to her husband who lives in Pennsylvania. She lives in LA. They have very separate but like supportive lives. And I was like, man, here's another one. Because like Holland Taylor and oh God, why are names escaping me? Sarah Paulson.
Oh, okay.
The actress, like they live separately and yet are in a relationship. And I was like, there's a lot of people who seem to have figured out that like
that's
loving a person does not mean living with another human being.
Yeah.
So
I think I could get behind that 100%.
Yeah. I don't like, and is that weird?
No, I don't
like
think so.
even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of John listening to this on one of his walks with the dogs. Hi, honey.
Yeah.
And it's not about you.
No,
it is just about
having
how strange it is to me that we cohabitate in the way we do. When, I mean, and I understand like, you know, economically that often makes sense,
for
but
sure.
like also what if instead of like 1, 3, 4 bedroom house, it was normal to have like 2 tiny apartments side by side.
Yeah.
2 tiny houses right next to each other.
Yeah. That would be the dream. Buy some land and then have 2 tiny houses. Love it.
It's just, I think it's good for a lot of people, myself included, to feel like you have your own cocoon.
Yeah.
Your own little space.
Yeah. No, I love it. Like it's, you know, when Alex used to work in the office more, I would just have the apartment to myself for just a couple hours. And it's just a zen just to be in quiet and just not be around another person. I get to have my little snacks. I just exist by myself.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Well, and that's why we have this space.
Yeah, exactly. We literally are in 2 different rooms.
Oh, I meant between me and my husband, like because I needed an office. I needed a space that could be my own.
Yeah.
I left the house. I found that elsewhere. And then, it has evolved to you and I having 2 separate rooms as well.
Right. You tried to escape and then another person was just like, hi.
Yeah. And so then it's like, oh, yeah, that 3-month contract for your last employer. How'd that go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just kind of moved in here.
All those years ago.
I know, isn't it wild that it's been almost 5 years? It'll be 5 years in May, which I will not.
You won't quite make it to 5 years.
Won't quite make it, but close, very close. Yeah.
What state does your license have? Your driver's license?
Wisconsin.
Okay, so you have had to renew it since you moved here. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I went ahead and did it because I know that officers. I think you're legally supposed to after 30 or 90 days.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So. Yeah, I just went ahead and did it because I was like, I don't want somebody to get pissy. So I just updated it. Huh. But yeah, I think you're legally supposed to when you move states. You've got either a month or 2 months.
I mean, how would they know?
You get a pissy cop who pulls you over and is like, here's a ticket. So I'm like, we're not doing that.
I mean, I've never had a cop ask me how long I've lived in the state of Wisconsin.
When I first moved here and I still had my Texas plate, I got pulled over like, I don't know, first 2-3 weeks we were here. And she was like, how long you been here? And I was like, 2 weeks, man. I'm doing my best.
Right.
Like, give me some time. So, yeah.
All right. Well, so that's what we're working on.
Yeah. I'm not doing anything very creative right now, but I am reading more. So I'm hoping maybe I can be nerdy and obnoxious about the books I'm absorbing and talk about that more.
Well,
so yeah.
Good. Over on the Patreon, we are starting our Nickelodeon series reaction videos for Animorphs. We're actually recording our first one after we finish recording this podcast.
Yes.
And depending on how long the editing takes me, that will either come out already.
Yes.
It either came out this Wednesday or it's coming out next Wednesday or maybe some other day.
Yeah.
We shall see, because it's something new, and you never like. I think the very first episode of this podcast we ever recorded, we never released because we just had to like redo it.
Oh, that's right.
Or it was very early in the process because like tech shit went wrong. So like, who knows, guys? It's coming.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out. And also the early shift returned this week, our Monday morning, just shooting the breeze. If you want to find out more about what it is we're reading, we talked about that on the early shift.
True.
So yeah. What are we talking about this week?
So very topical for the week. I was on Threads today. And an influencer on TikTok started hemorrhaging followers after she slammed spicy romance books. I don't know what she was thinking. She clearly was not paying attention to her audience at all, but she went on this 45-minute rant about how they were gross and badly written and that the covers looked like they were aimed for children and that was misleading. And people, of course, very politely set her on fire and then left her page or whatever. So yeah, I figured we would take this time to defend one of our favorite genres and just kind of maybe discuss why it is that people tend to kind of come for romance a lot. Like it seems to be
come for romance.
See? This is why they're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems to be like the low-hanging fruit. People always seem to gravitate towards talking shit about the genre that sells kind of by the numbers better than most other ones.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the porn effect, right?
Right.
It's like everybody watches it, but nobody will talk about how they watch it. And so, romance books, many of which include scenes that would cross over into the realm of erotica, are very popular because sex sells.
Yeah.
We are human beings, and the majority of us, though not everybody, have a sexual preference and enjoy thinking about it or reading stories about it. Yeah. I think women in particular like the way they can use their imagination when it comes to erotic writing versus men who I think are more engaged by visual porn. I am saying this from I think they've actually done studies. Like I'm not. I think this is real. Somebody fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I
would love to actually know that, like read about that.
I think they have done studies that like women are more engaged by using their own imaginations and men are more engaged by actual visual stimulation.
Interesting. Okay.
But just two different ways of getting to the same outcome, which is that happy feeling when your body reacts to the idea of sexual satisfaction. And that is why people like it. And yet we have all been conditioned to not talk about it, not tell people about it. Yeah. And so it's often this dirty little secret.
Yeah.
Or something you can talk about in groups online, but like you would never talk to your neighbor about the dirty books you read.
Yeah, right. Even though she's got a copy of like 50 Shades. You know
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like this open secret that we have, that there is content in the world that makes us happy.
Yeah.
But that we all know we're supposed to feel bad about consuming, and therefore we don't talk about it.
Yeah. It's just, I feel so frustrated that in 2025, this is still a thing. That we're just like, oh, it's gross.
I mean, look at all the shit that happened in 2024 and is going to happen in 2025. We are falling backwards. We are launching ourselves backwards. Led by people who I'm sure are doing the exact same thing, and yet...
For sure. Yeah.
And yet get off, wink, wink, on making other people feel bad about things that are perfectly natural and normal. And so when somebody comes along and does their best to make you feel bad about the thing that we've all been told we're supposed to feel bad about.
Right.
And yet maybe we were finally starting to feel was normal because there are entire communities of people online who are finding one another. Yeah. Engaging with one another, building community with one another based on these things.
Right.
And then somebody comes along and like wags their finger and like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And does it in a way that says, I don't like this and you shouldn't either.
Yeah. That's, I think,
here's the reasons why it's bad. how many times have we talked about like it's not bad. It's just something you don't like.
Right. Right. I would, honestly, if this chick was just like, I don't like it and this is why I don't like it, great. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? But she was, apparently, I didn't watch it myself, but apparently why they came for her is because she was very much like, this is gross, badly written. Like, who's even reading this? And like, I mean, all your followers are. You're on Book Talk. Where do you think you are? You know what I mean? Like the most popular shit on Book Talk typically are the spicy things.
Yeah, and I assume this person also has some sort of advanced degree in writing to be able to assess what's considered good writing, and she's an authority on that.
Yeah, she's probably a teacher in the subject and not just some random lady on the platform.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not your thing. Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
Move on.
I never understand how people can just take something they don't like and just blanket like all of it is bad. Or if you like anything within this specific thing, you are less of a reader or you don't understand how to consume media correctly. I just keep it to yourself. Like, why are you taking those stances?
I do think we can have adult conversations where we disagree about the effects of some of this material on the world. You know, like when we talk about bully romances, dark romances, writing that includes non-consensual acts, or like those things can be kinks too.
Sure.
And they, we can have an adult discussion about whether or not we think that quote unquote promotes it.
Right. Yeah, but that's more of a nuanced discussion.
Right. That's a discussion we can have. But to just straight out be like, anything that includes on-page sex, I don't like. Has no value.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, come on, really?
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating thing is that it says that one of the tired arguments is that you're not learning anything. It has no value. It's not bettering you in any way. To which I would say, okay, sure, probably not, but it's an escape. Or like, I need my brain to rest. I need a dopamine boost. I don't need to be learning something and bettering myself every damn second. I can just be a person who enjoys things.
Right.
That's fine. And you can also argue that certain aspects of those books you are learning. You're learning about maybe facets of yourself you didn't know, or more about the community that you're not actively in as much, that kind of stuff. So you could argue it for all of those things, but really it's also okay to be like, yeah, maybe it's just candy. And I just want some candy and leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And the other thing that she talked about was illustrated covers. And I was just like, I just wanted to talk about covers for a second, because I know that kind of back in the day it was, and it still kind of is, where it's like shirtless boys on the cover sold. Now it's trending more towards like illustrated covers that are a little bit more, I guess, cartoony, even though I think cartoony to me sounds degrading. Like, because it's not.
They're illustrated.
Yeah, they're illustrated. They're it's paintings and stuff like that. Which I like both. It's fine. But I'm like, it doesn't bother me either way. But I wonder what we feel like the next evolution of the genre is going to be. Like, do you think we'll continue to see more illustrated stuff, or do you think we'll go back to like only thighs? Like, I wonder
only thighs. Get a load of this. What I would like to happen, normalize having more than one cover.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Because so many of the romances that I read could appeal to people who are there for the spicy part.
Yeah.
Or could appeal to people who are there for the plot.
Yeah.
And so sometimes both of the covers that you described, the ones with like the shirtless hunks or the illustrated ones that look a bit more geared towards perhaps younger people, both could be true.
Yeah.
Both could be right.
Right.
So
yeah, why not?
Why not try to appeal to more than one audience? Have a couple covers. Have an alternate.
Yeah. That's actually not a bad idea.
Like, yes, it's this, and it's also this.
Yeah.
It's both things.
Which one do you like? It's the same story. You know? Yeah. That's actually
as long as you're
smart.
not opposed to this other thing, which is another way of saying, like, you might not like this book. Like,
exactly.
Yes, there's a shirtless hunk. And also,
it's about princes or whatever.
Yeah, it's a cute story about princes.
Yeah.
I don't think the type of cover can say everything about what most of the romances are.
Right.
Because romances can be many, many things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, if you try to lump it all into one box. I'm kind of glad that covers now are branching away from just everybody's covers looking very similar, where it's just like one, like it's just a torso or whatever. So I can kind of get a better idea of what kind of extra little goodies are in.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a romance book. There's going to be a hot dude in it, but like what else is going on? Like, you know what I mean? So I kind of love that now I can see these different evolutions of these covers and kind of get a better idea of what the gooey bits are.
Yeah. Well, and I think the torso covers have always been an element of, or a hallmark of the books that are sort of like around the corner. You know, like Harlequin romances.
Yeah.
You know, that you buy at the supermarket. You know.
Yeah.
Slip it in while you're buying your groceries.
Yeah.
Or like the books that were kind of like off to their own section at a bookstore.
Yeah.
So as like romance is rightfully embraced as something that is so popular and should be on bestseller list if it's best selling.
Yeah.
I think the industry is just being like, oh, actually, we can make these books can also look like real books. We don't have to signal boost the fact that there's sex in it because that's more normal,
right?
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. But again, I say like if the hot, sexy dudes on a cover are what draw in part of an audience, great.
Yeah.
But yeah, if an illustration more effectively talks about what the story is about, awesome. Sometimes they can just be artistic and fun.
Yeah.
They don't really say anything about the book.
Yeah.
Maybe you just want one that has like really impressive typesetting or like a beautiful font. That could be a version of it, you know?
Yeah.
Normalize more than one.
Yeah.
And I know it's an expense. I'm not saying like every indie author should now be spending 2-3 times as much on covers. But yeah, normalize having more than one.
You can always release it and then come back and do extra covers later. I'm doing that with Relic. You know what I mean? Just zhuzhing it up, come back and add a little bit more. Maybe you'll catch some more people. Yeah. So, but yeah, I love that. I would love to see more covers. Also, I've loved the typeface covers. I know for a little while people are getting sick of those. I'm like, fucking cool though, man. Like I really love a really good, strong, bold title with cool stuff around it. Yeah. It's pretty. It always looks nice. I love those.
And like, there's plenty of romances that could also be marketed as thrillers or science fiction, where those types of like bold graphic titles are more popular. And it's like, do your shirtless hunks and then do a bold graphic typesetting to be like, and also this is a thriller.
Yeah, love that.
You know, why not?
Hopefully that takes off. Hopefully, I think that can be approachable. If you do it right as an author, you can do like pre-made covers and stuff that align with it. And it wouldn't break the bank. So I'm going to start championing that more.
So there. But also, the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover. The booksellers do what they can to try to guide you to a book that you'll like, but really have more, know that the onus is on you to find the books you like and focus more on the blurb than the cover. Yeah.
I know we're visual creatures and the cover is the first thing you see, so it either just going to snap your attention or not. But I mean, take the time to read the blurb because freaking Lightning Struck Heart has a terrible cover and it's one of my favorite. Like, I don't like the cover. Like that's, whoops, sorry. And that's not TJ's fault. That's just his publisher at the time and stuff. But like,
it's a very literal it's literally a lightning struck heart.
Yeah, but it is
a heart with lightning going through it.
And it has nothing to do with the story.
Because that's a metaphor.
Yeah. So I was like, no, exactly. But like, if you read the blurb, you're like, oh, totally not what I thought it was going to be.
Well, to pick on another TJ Klune book, like I love the new covers that Macmillan did because they're beautiful. Yeah. But also my main critique of the original covers and these covers are that these books are not about wolves or animals. Yeah. These books are about people. And neither cover has ever featured the family.
Yeah. That's fair.
And if you wanted to really tell in the cover what a book was about, you would show the family.
The family, yeah.
That's fair. But like people who probably know better than me designed these covers in a way that was meant to be visually appealing to certain people at a certain time and place. And in they came. Yeah. And honestly, the thing that draws most people into them, I'm willing to bet, is the name TJ Klune on the front cover.
Exactly, yeah.
And everything else is irrelevant. So.
Man, wouldn't that be a nice pull? Just see the name and be like, oh, the cover can just be a blank sheet of paper. It wouldn't matter. Hey, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool. So this week we had the pleasure of discussing writing, some hunky aliens, and video games with author Laura Taylor, which is the pseudonym for Gabriel Danes. Gabriel is a bisexual transgender writer of fantasy and romance novels. He likes watching ice hockey, playing RPG video games, and has fantasies of one day becoming a firefighter. And why not?
Why not?
Why not? We love firefighters. Thank you to the firefighters working very hard in California right now.
Yes.
Here is our interview with Gabriel. We are welcoming to the podcast author Laura Taylor, aka Gabriel Danes. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to chat with you. I know, we've interacted online before,
yes,
but we have not had the chance to actually meet. So this is exciting. So welcome.
Thank you. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we typically start with the same question for everybody, which is, tell us your author origin story.
Okay. I think I started writing in much the same way that a lot of indie authors start, which is I was writing fan fiction as a teenager, writing a lot of short stories, some very bad poetry, as teenagers often do.
Snaps for that.
And back then, I think fanfiction.net was the place to be. So I was posting a lot of it online, getting a lot of really positive feedback on my stories. And every now and then someone would pop up and go, oh, this is really good. You should write a novel. But, I sort of thought, yeah, I'll do that one day. But, I was going to university and was, trying to start a career and, had other things to focus on. But at the same time, because this was before ebooks and self-publishing was really a thing. So if you were reading romance and wanted to read a lot cheaply, Mills and Boon was the thing. So I was reading a lot of Mills and Boon, and of course then it was all very cis-het oriented. I was reading a story one day and just thought, this is absolutely awful. I could write something better than this. So I wrote a novel, and it was a heterosexual contemporary romance, and it was absolutely dreadful. So I wrote
because it was heterosexual, or
well, that too. I mean, I know
among the reasons.
What are the reasons?
Heterosexual relationships here, do we? But no, it was just because it was my first novel and I didn't know what I was doing, and that's the sort of the journey that we go through. So I wrote another novel, which was a little bit better, but still not fantastic. But through that process, I was really enjoying the writing process in sort of following the pathway of the plot and on all the different threads, and sort of I'd start with a picture at the end of, this is where I want to end up. Then you have to backtrack and go, okay, these are all the things that have to happen to get there. And I was just loving the process. So I kept writing novels, and as the years went by, self-publishing became a bigger thing. And also I started reading paranormal romance instead of contemporary romance, and eventually got to the point where I thought, okay, I want to write a novel that I can actually publish. And I think I've got enough skill now that I'm up to the point I can do that. So I was going to write a series about wolf shapeshifters, and I decided right at the start it was going to be 7 books. Just because it's a series it's more fun to get into the world and do a lot of world building, but at the same time it makes it easier to sell, because you've got, if people like the first book, they'll probably buy the second one. So I wrote the first book in the series and self-published it, and it went pretty well. For a first book from an unknown author, the sales were pretty good. So then I wrote the second book and the third book in the series. And meanwhile, I was still writing a lot of romance in the fan fiction sphere. But because traditional publishing, this was, 12, 13 years ago or something, traditional publishing was not doing much in the way of publishing queer fiction. So I was kind of taking my cue from that and going, okay, if I want to sell stuff, I've got to put it, it's got to be heterosexual. You know, I can't publish my romance because there's not going to be an audience for it. And my partner at the time was reading some of my fan fiction, and he said to me, no, this particular story is really good. You should rework this as a novel and publish it. And I was like, no, I can't do that. It's, you know, people don't publish romance. But he was a very stubborn sort of person, so he kept on about this and kept saying, you should do this. So I got onto Amazon one day and just did a bunch of searches on romance and Amigaverse and various things around that, and found this absolute mountain of novels that people had published, and some of them had hundreds of reviews. So I was like, okay, there's an audience for this. So I reworked this story into an independent novel and published it, and it just took off. And I was amazed at how many people really love this, to the point that I wrote 2 more books in that series. And I haven't looked back.
Awesome. Name those titles. I want to know what they are.
Yeah, for sure.
The romance is Redemption of a Slave. It's trigger warning. It's got some sexual assault scenes in it. So if, you know, for anyone listening, if that's not your thing, don't read that book.
Good call.
Yeah, for sure.
The Shapeshifter series, the first one was called Wolf's Blood. And as I said, there's 7 books in that series. It took me a good 7 years to finish the series, but I eventually did it. I was very proud of that.
We know a little something about finishing series.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I'm looking at the person across the table from me.
For sure. Like it's a mountain to climb. Yeah. And was it when you get to the very end of the series where you delighted you finished, but also like, oh, now what do I do? You know what I mean? Like you like, because you spend so long in that world, or were you ready to just like jump into the next project?
By that point, I was ready to jump into the next project because, like I said, 7 years had gone by, and I'd had all of these other ideas, and I had like 10 books lined up waiting to be written that I just didn't have time for yet. So it was bittersweet. I was very sad to let go of that world. But at the same time, I had so many other things that I wanted to go and explore that it was almost a relief to go, yes, I've finished this now. I can put it down.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I think the mix of it being bittersweet because you can always go back. You can always do short stories and stuff. But there's like a weird finality, at least for me. Like when I just finished The Wild Contracts, I'm like, oh, I'm done. Like I'm done. These characters are wrapped up, everything's done. And at any point, I can just kick it back up again. But really, for like the sake of the series, it's wrapped up. And I feel almost adrift right now. Like, I'm like, I don't even really know where to go from here. Because usually, I'm like you, I've got like that next thing ready to go. And right now I don't. So I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, it's just a weird feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I do sometimes get that sort of dip after I finish the last one in the series. And it doesn't last long, but I do have that moment of going, oh, but now what?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. I also want to just take a second to acknowledge partners who support us enough to say, no, you should do this. Stop doubting yourself. Mm-hmm. So snaps for him. That was good. That was a good moment.
Good for that person.
Yeah. I mean, we're no longer together, but I'm still very grateful for the push that he gave me to get into that. So
yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we love.
Do you mind if I ask what your fanfic is? You can say no.
There was a number of different fandoms I was into. I started out as a 13-year-old teenager writing Sailor Moon.
Love it.
Wow, at 13.
I'm a bit embarrassed about that one.
Why?
No, that's fantastic, dude. I used to write
this podcast.
Yeah, oh please, right? I used to write Dragon Ball fan fiction. Like we can be friends. I do, like that's no shame. Like that was part of my journey as an author as well. So I'm right there with you.
Also, I was obsessed with Sailor Moon. What about that didn't appeal to a young gay kid?
Exactly.
It was amazing.
Okay, well, I feel a little bit redeemed there then. So then I moved on to Gundam Wing because, again, gay boys fantasy.
Absolutely.
All these young men flying around in giant mechas. Then I was playing some Final Fantasy at the time. So Final Fantasy VIII was a big favorite of mine. So I did some fanfics on that one, and then moved on a few years later to Mass Effect.
Awesome.
Have you played that one, Maz?
Yes. So I saw that in your bio, and I was going to actually ask you, but I don't want to derail it because
it's fine.
Okay, I was
Notice how he knew not to even ask me.
I tend to if any of our guests are even remotely into gaming, I get so excited.
I'll just be over here.
And I tend to hijack the conversation. But yeah, no, I love Mass Effect. One of my all-time favorite series ever. So love that you are into that. I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite crew member who is your ride or die, your top 3 that the people you always took with you?
Caden?
Okay. I can respect that. I like Caden.
See how quickly I answered that question?
Yeah, right. No, I think people who played and really were into the story, you have your crew. I always had Garrus, I always had Tali, and typically Liara, if I was romancing her at the time. But Garrus and Tali were always on my crew, and then Jack because she's fun to have. But yeah, that was my crew, and I had a Garrus romance arc, and he was my Gare Bear space cricket daddy. I loved him so much. So I know, it's fine.
I always romance Caden. I just absolutely love him as a character.
It's hard not to love Caden.
I couldn't romance anyone else. I just felt like I was betraying him.
I get it. So I had to force myself to not romance Garrus a couple times because I loved him so much. So I would do Liara's, and then I would do Tali's. I was I love both of you. You're not Garrus. I want my cricket. So yeah, I totally get it.
Gosh, who knew there was so much romancing happening in these video games?
You don't know, man.
Yeah, hell of a lot.
They don't put that in the commercials.
Yeah, well, because they sneak it in, so more regular normies will pick it up and be oh, it's shooting bang bang. That's fun. I'm that's not why we're playing this.
But that's my impression from the outside. Maybe I would have been more into it if I knew I could be romancing Cadens and Garrus's.
Yeah. That's what we're for.
Yeah.
You know.
I know. I keep thinking I should start playing video games because clearly it is a well of inspiration for writers who I admire.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Some of the characters in some of my novels have been based loosely on characters out of video games. Because I find I play RPGs, so it's like an interactive novel. I play it for the storytelling, and there are some amazing stories that sort of backstories to some of the characters. So it's really hard to not kind of latch onto some of that and go, okay, I want to explore this more. I want to turn this into a fully fledged character in a their own world somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think about that as you're writing a book? Are you almost writing a video game in your mind?
I sometimes feel like that, yes, because I see the events in the book and the scenery in the book very vividly in my own head, and I see the characters very as 3-dimensional people. So it very much at times does become sort of watching a movie or watching a video game as I'm writing it.
And I feel like that must translate because I know there are times when I'm reading a book, either for work or just for fun, where you do start to see it as a movie in your mind. Mm-hmm. And I know I have learned through the years that that's a product of good writing.
Yeah.
When the imagery is there for you.
Yeah.
So what a powerful teaching tool that has been for you, for so many of our guests who talk about video games. I'm clearly behind the times on this. I'm not a curmudgeon. I just have never done it.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those. It was there's a lot of things that go into it. Was it around when you were a kid? I had an older sibling who had a Super Nintendo. I was never allowed to play on it because he's an ass. So eventually when I got old enough and I asked for my own, then I could really enjoy it. But like if that wasn't in your orbit, if you didn't have an older sibling to introduce it, or like you didn't have a parent that was into it, you kind of didn't really know about it. At least people I think in our age group, that it wasn't until maybe you went to a friend's house, but at that point you're in like middle school, high school. You feel like you kind of missed the boat on a lot of stuff.
Right.
So makes sense.
Yeah. Also, that's when theater
took
over for me.
Exactly. So you were doing like actual theater and production stuff, and I was sitting in my home or like in my room playing God of War like a nerd with no friends.
Okay, let's not start the God of War conversation.
Yeah, I won't.
We shan't do that. Back to Gabriel and the writing. So like, what are you working on now? What's your baby at the moment?
Right now, I've actually, back in the end of November, I published the first book in a new series. So now I'm knee deep in working on the second one. I've just started the editing phase on book 2 in the series, which is, it's a sci-fi, sci-fi romance. Book 1 in the series is called Cade Accidentally Bonded, and it's set about 400 years in the future. Humanity has left Earth. They've started colonizing other planets, and they formed an alliance with 5 other species. So you've got sort of this friendly little group of aliens who are all, they've colonized this bunch of planets together. And our MC is Aiden. He's a human. He's a lieutenant in the Alliance military. So he's basically your typical space marine. He's defending the planet from space pirates and like exploring new worlds, all that sort of stuff. Then you've got the one of the less friendly alien species. They're called the Umadians, and they basically go around kidnapping the babies of this other species that they're kind of subjugating and train them as slaves. They kind of brainwash them as they raise them as children. And they've also got neuroengineering technology, which kind of changes the structure of the kids' brains, so that when they finish their training, they basically get shut in a shipping container, sent off to their master, and they get activated so that when they step outside their crate and the first person they see, they imprint on them and go, okay, you're my master, and then they're compelled to obey them for the rest of their lives. So the Alliance, of course, is very against this. They don't like slavery. It's all illegal on the Alliance planets. But the beginning of this story is Aiden is going to investigate a ship which has crashed on their planet. He finds this crate along the way, kind of goes, oh, maybe there's something useful in here, opens the crate, and of course you've got Cade is in there who goes, oh, you're my master. How can I serve you? So
I
hilarity ensues.
I know, right? Like, and this poor guy now is like, oh no, no, we can't have this. This is not good. So yeah, no, that's a great start to a romance story.
Yeah. So I mean, the rest of the book is basically about Aiden is trying to rehabilitate Cade and go, no, you can be your own master. You can make your own decisions. And Cade is going, no, but I love you. I want to serve you. That's my whole purpose. And it's, there's all of the emotional angst that goes with that. It's on the hurt comfort trope, which is one of my favorite tropes, because I love the comforting phase of soothing my characters and making everything okay. But in order to get to that point, you have to hurt them first. So I tend to hurt them a lot.
Yeah, got to beat them up a little bit. They gotta earn that happy ending.
Yeah.
And where does that darkness come from, do you think?
Our childhoods and traumas.
See, and this is where, let me ask more questions about video games, because this is something I genuinely have had to work through in my work, which is romances with people who are like humanoid, but not human. Mm-hmm. And it's that, to me, there's like this little amount of a gulf of like, trying to understand a romantic involvement with somebody who isn't human. Does that happen in video games a lot? And is that maybe where I don't have that bridge, that I had to build that bridge for myself in this work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to distract too much because I do have questions about Cade and like what kind of alien he is because I want to know about your alien races like crazy bad. But when I was talking about a space cricket, Garrett is a space cricket. He's a giant fucking bug.
Oh.
But he's charismatic as fuck.
Okay.
And there's like, it didn't matter that he probably didn't have all the anatomy that I needed for my shepherd because I loved him and we were going to make it work. So I guess to me, I was like, it's fine. Right. It doesn't bother me. We'll figure it out. We'll work around it. So I don't know. But I assume with like, I don't know, for your story, is Cade more of a humanoid type of alien or is he going to be more on like Garrus?
No, Cade in particular is humanoid. I have some other species which are less humanoid. One of the ones that lives on this planet, with the humans in their alliance, they're called Durelians, but they're kind of like centaurs, but a lot smaller. So I guess it's kind of like if you had a German Shepherd, but it was a centaur. It had the torso.
I do want
on the German Shepherd body. That's one of my species that lives there. So I have so much fun creating different alien species, and like if I'm going to do a romance with one, they're always largely humanoid because it just makes me feel a bit weird if they're too different. But then for the non-romance species in a book, I just go nuts and do like really wild things, which is so much fun. But Cade himself is mostly humanoid. His natural coloring is blue, but he's got scales instead of skin, and he's like a chameleon. He can change color.
Cool.
And he's also been trained as an assassin. So one of his tricks is like they go into the jungle and he changes his color to like green or something and just disappears into the background.
Oh, wow.
Neat.
So
that would be handy. That's really cool. So it's like they're bonded to be slaves, but they also have additional training for like to protect their master, I assume, or they're specialized stuff.
They're taught different skills. So the master comes along and goes, okay, I need a slave who can fly a spaceship, and buys one that's been trained to do that particular task. Or in this case, yes, I need someone to protect me. So I'm going to find someone who's been trained for combat. And there are others who are just like trained as like house slaves who just like do the laundry and the cooking and stuff. And so there's a range of different skills that they're taught, and then you just pick the one that fits your needs.
That's epic. Yeah, I mean, you're going to make me want to write a sci-fi because now I want to come up with like cool alien species and stuff because I just imagine the brainstorming session for that. Like it gives you excuse to play Mass Effect again. And like, do you watch a lot of sci-fi programming, like movies and TV shows and stuff?
Not a whole lot, no. Simply because I don't have time.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I'm still working full time and also trying to write full time as much as I can.
Yeah.
So sort of every spare minute I have is spent on writing rather than watching TV or even playing video games. I kind of that's been pushed into a corner at the moment because I just want to get the next book out.
Yeah, no, I definitely can relate to that. Yeah.
Do you have the rest of the series sort of mapped out in your head? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? I
am very much a plotter. So I have
a rare breed on our podcast.
Yeah, usually it's pantsers, and they're just like, I'm gonna figure it out. So my hat is off to you that you actually like. No, I'm planning my stuff like a adult who could do things.
I'm very easily distracted, so if I don't plan stuff out, I just end up going on random tangents and looking up weird stuff on the internet. So I make a lot more progress if I plan it out in the first place. So this series is going to be 4 books in total. I know, like I said, I'm editing the second one as we speak. I know what happens in the 4th one. The 3rd one, I've got a vague idea about who the characters are, but I haven't really planned out exactly what happens or how the plot progresses yet. So that'll be a nice surprise when I get to it.
I've definitely lived in that space before where I'm like, I have vibes and characters, and that's kind of it right now.
I am interested in finding out more. Like, in the plotting process? Because I think if I were to write a book, I would have to plot it.
Yeah.
Because my brain just works. Like, to me, I would have to create the whole book in a spreadsheet first.
Yeah.
And then I could actually begin writing the actual scenes and dialogue. So when you're organizing a story, like, what is your approach? Are you like making lists, or and how long does the plotting take versus when you actually sit down to write?
The plotting can take probably, if I'm working hard at it, probably about a week. So, I mean, I kind of have to sit down and do like a couple of hours at a stretch to really get embedded in the story and figure out where it's going. I always start with the character arc. So I'm not really interested in the plot or the world or anything right at the start. It's who is the character? What do they want? What are they feeling? What is their romantic interest in this person? Because I usually write romances. So I plot out a very detailed emotional arc for both characters, and then kind of backfill the details of, okay, what world are we on, and what environment would be conducive to this kind of relationship, and what are the specific plot points that are going to lead to this emotional development that we want to reach at the end of the book.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I think for me, the things I love the most are the characters. Like, of course, I love world building. I love a good plot. But if the characters aren't really strong, I can't forever love a series like that. So I think starting with the whole journey for that character is such a great way to begin a good project.
Yeah. Well, and it does, like, again, as somebody who is yet to write a book, but thinks it would be super fun. Like, that to me makes so much sense, because it gives you such an important piece of the puzzle. And I've read some books about writing, and like Save the Cat talks a lot about that character arc and like needing to know like what their flaws are and how like what's the lesson they're going to learn as like a primary thing to figure out. And as I've like brainstormed ideas, to me it's like the hardest nut to crack.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that wants the characters to be just kind of like perfect and flawless from the very beginning. And it's like, well, that would make a really boring story.
Right, yeah.
So how do we fuck these guys up?
Yeah. You have to give them hurdles to overcome. And
right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me to start with that element and then build around it.
Yeah.
Do you surprise yourself then when you're like, okay, I've got this really great idea for a character, and now I'm going to set them on an alien world in the future where there's 5 other species and see what happens?
I'm constantly surprised because I get to a certain point, particularly in a series, when you get to know the characters, know the world better, the characters just come to life and they start telling me what they want to do in the book. And I think other authors experience this as well at times, that they actually become like 3-dimensional people and they have their own desires. And at times I've sort of tried to say to the character, no, you have to go over here and do this thing. And they're just like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go over here instead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I find it really valuable to know what the overall character arc is, because there are potentially multiple different pathways to get to the end. And if the character at some point says, no, I want to take path B instead of path A, so long as they're going in the same general direction, I'm okay with that. It works because we still end up in the same place. But I find you really have to give the characters a bit of leeway to become real people in order to end up with an authentic story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, if somebody were to just start their first book of yours, where would you want them to begin?
It really depends what sort of trope they're looking for and how dark they want to go. Like I said, Redemption of a Slave is one of my most popular books, but it contains a fair amount of triggering material. So, if you like the sort of darker romance, then yeah, go for that one. If you want something a little bit more lighthearted, probably Cade, Accidentally Bonded is a good place to start. A lot of my romances are Amigaverse books. So if you like Amigaverse, pick up any of them. If some people aren't so much into that, so it really varies depending on exactly what the reader is looking for.
Yeah. Well, and do your interests vary as much as the writing that you do then too? Or are you kind of like, as a reader, I do this, but as a writer, I spread out?
Yes. Yeah. My writing is sort of goes in all directions. Like I've written some straight paranormal romance, and I still write a bit of that now and then. I've written some Omegaverse. I've written some sci-fi, some fantasy. I wrote one book, which I don't publicize it much because it's kind of off-brand, but it was a futuristic dystopian survival story, which is very unlike anything else I've written. But I had this idea in my head. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to write it down and see what happens. So I basically go wherever the muses take me.
Yeah, it's again, I writing is magic to me. Like, there's still so much of it that seems like it just happens behind this like veil of mystery and mystique. And then it's even more impressive when like there just seems to be like an endless amount of stories that need to be told, and they don't all follow the same path. Not that I mean, there's nothing wrong too with authors who want to.
They find their thing and they
niche and
for sure
stick with it.
But I love it when you get to branch out and just try different things. Like you do contemporary, do sci-fi, do fantasy, whatever. Just whatever, wherever your heart is leading you, just go for it. Like I feel like your readers will follow you no matter what. Like you'll get drop off. Like if people aren't really into high fantasy or something, they'll check out. But I think for the most part, people are down for the ride. You know what I mean? Like they just want to see what you do next. So why not? And
it sort of speaks to the elasticity of romance as a genre.
Yeah,
too.
For sure.
That like romance can exist in so many different times and places and different types of stories and different species.
Yeah.
Or sometimes demons and humans. And it's like, like I am endlessly impressed by the creativity that authors with which authors will approach their storytelling. And like, there just doesn't seem to be any boundaries.
Yeah. That's my favorite
which
part.
is a really cool part of the work that we do.
Yes.
Especially when we live with so many boundaries in the real world.
For sure.
So
absolutely.
Anything else that you would love our listeners to know before we wrap things up?
Well, just on the subject of Cade Accidentally Bonded, I have actually narrated that into an audiobook, which was released about a week ago. So if anyone is particularly a fan of audiobooks rather than sort of reading the book, it's out at most audiobook retailers now. It's not quite on Audible yet because they take a little bit longer to do their quality checks and things. But yeah, so that's out there in the world if people want.
Fantastic.
I've had a bit of a learning curve with the whole narrating thing.
Of course, yes. I'd be worried if you said it was like easy, fantastic, love it.
No, definitely not easy. Because I originally reached out to Kirt about a year ago to say, look, I've got these books, I'd like to turn them into audiobooks. Can you tell me about your availability and your pricing? And he very kindly sent me a price list, which I looked at and went, oh.
Sorry.
No. So then I was like, well, okay, I still want to create an audiobook. What are my other options? I mean, one of the options is AI, which I just absolutely refuse to do because it is horrible. So then it was like, okay, well, I could try narrating it myself. So I got a microphone and set up a little sound booth, which is literally my closet, and just thought, okay, I'll have a go at this. And I made a few mistakes early on, definitely. One of them was because I bought a microphone, but it just plugs into my laptop. But of course, there is a microphone built into the laptop. And I
see where this is going.
Yeah. So I sat down and recorded like 3 chapters. And then at the end went, oh, I was on the wrong microphone. So I had to redo the whole thing, which was very annoying. Yeah.
Been there, done that. Yeah. It's like the little waveforms they're peaking. Things are happening. Everything's fine. I was like, oh, it's not going through the right microphone. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
That would be so heartbreaking.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And like, hey, closets make great sound booths. They like for beginners, it's a great place to start. Don't invest in a ton of like sound boost material when like Close, great sound absorbers.
Yeah.
Wolf Song was recorded in a closet with coats. And it's still the most popular thing I've ever done. So, you know, those first audiobooks, sometimes they have legs. So you never know. You never know. But I think that's fantastic. I would obviously love for authors to approach narrating their own work above choosing AI. That I think is a great way to go. And can only help to spread the love of audio and also, you know, infiltrate the author community with people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to creating audio. Because sometimes we do struggle to impress upon people the effort that goes into it. So I think that's great. So awesome. So yeah, check out Cade. Listeners, will obviously link to all your stuff when we release the episode. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. This was lovely.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much to Gabriel for chatting with us. His newest release, Cade, Accidentally Bonded, Book 1 in the Rogue Bond series, is out now. This episode also happens to be coming out on Gabriel's birthday.
Yay, happy birthday!
So please feel free to look up links to his social media in the show notes and wish him a happy birthday. That is it for us this week. If you want to find out more about us, you can find our social media links and our Patreon link on our website, hoofandfangpodcast.com. And we will be back next week.
Yeah, see you then.